Hanukkah is called the Festival of Lights, but do you know why? Hi there, I'm Jackie Ferris. This week on the 302, we are going to learn about the history and traditions behind Hanukkah. So grab a dreidel, the 302 is spinning your way. Why is Hanukkah called the Festival of Lights? Well, you're about to find out. I'm joined now by Rabbi Nick Renner, who is going to tell us all about it. Nick, now you are the Director of Lifelong Learning at Congregation Beth Shalom.
You can call me the Associate Rabbi.
The Associate Rabbi. So let's just get right down to it. When we talk about Hanukkah, it's very well known, but perhaps it's not the biggest observance of the Jewish faith. Is that right?
That's right. Hanukkah comes to us a little bit later historically than other Jewish holidays, and the significance of it is a little bit less than, say, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, Yom Kippur, the Jewish Day of Atonement. Those are the biggest holidays in our calendar year. Hanukkah is super well known and famous, but I think it takes on almost an outsized degree of influence in our society, in part due to proximity to Christmas, to winter celebrations, winter break. If you go to Israel, for instance, people won't have off work for Hanukkah. It'll be something they'll get together with friends, with family, but the really big holidays are Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and then also Passover in the spring.
So when we talk about Hanukkah, we're talking about a miracle that was born out of the struggle for religious freedom. Is that right?
That's right. This is a moment, so historically, to frame it, we're in like the 160s BCE, so the negative numbers on the number line, post-Alexander, Alexander the Great, who conquered sort of much of the known world at the time. And his whole area dissolves into different governors and different powers at different places. And in and around the land of Israel is a ruler at that time named Antiochus, and he is in charge of the Seleucids. They had all kinds of clashes around religion, faith, God. One of the things with Alexander's governors is they were sort of happy for everybody they conquered. Great, we'll just tack your God on the shelf in the pantheon with the rest of them, and it'll all be perfectly happy. And the Jews at the time sort of said, no, we have our own relationship with God, our own faith that isn't this sort of polytheistic thing that you read about in school and sort of Greek gods and goddesses. One thing led to another, and the frictions increased, and eventually this resulted in what we call the Hasmonean Revolt, in which a group of Jews rose up against the Seleucids, against Antiochus, led by Judah Maccabee. If you ever heard of the Maccabees, that's sort of their group, and they led this armed struggle, essentially, a revolution for freedom, and to practice their own religious faith and to maintain their relationship with God and with holiness in the world.
So after the battle was won, they went back to a temple that was just practically destroyed, and that's where the miracle happened. Talk to us about the miracle that we hear so much about.
Totally. So at the time, in the course of the fighting and what have you, these sort of post-Greek Seleucids, they leveled a lot of what was there. A lot gets burned to the ground, gets razed. The temple gets kind of wrecked. This is the great temple in Jerusalem at the time. They go back to rededicate the temple, reconsecrate it. And Hanukkah, the word itself, actually means dedication or consecration. The word you use today to describe putting up a mezuzah, on a doorpost, that little scroll, that little case. When you put that on a new house or something, that's called Chanukhat Habayit, dedication of a house. So they went back to dedicate the temple, to fix, what had gotten wrecked. They needed oil as part of the rituals to refresh it, to bring it back up to worshiping God, to connecting with holiness and God. They didn't have enough. They had 1 day's supply of oil. This is sort of the miracle that comes in. And that little bit that they had wound up lasting them for 8 days. They said, wow, what an incredible miracle we have here. This is what gives us the 8 days of Hanukkah. The the 8 days of light, where we get the miracle of light, as well as the name Hanukkah.
So the vessel that is used in observance is a Hanukkah, is that right?
Yeah.
And I found something interesting that all Hanukkahs are menorahs, but not all menorahs are Hanukkahs, is that right?
That's right. It's kind of like saying all scotch is whiskey, but not all whiskey is scotch in the same way, same category. A Hanukkah it has 8 branches to it, so 4 and 4 with 1 in the middle. There are also a lot of menorahs, bigger picture, that might have 3 and 3 with 1 in the middle. You see those on a lot of symbols of Israel. Those were used in and around worship in the temples that stood in Jerusalem. Today there are statues of them. There's a statue of one of those actually outside of the Knesset, Israeli parliament. But yes, the Hanukkah menorahs all have 8 branches for the 8 days of Hanukkah. They are a type of menorah, but not every menorah is a Hanukkah.
So there is a candle in the middle that is used to light one candle each night while you say prayers, but there's also a lot of other things that are done during Hanukkah, and one is food in oil. Why is that?
So when we go back to the Hanukkah miracle, this miracle of light that is based on oil, one of the ways in which we celebrate it is foods that are kind of saturated in oil. And so out of European Jewish communities, we have what we refer to as latkes. They are essentially shredded potato pancakes that get fried on both sides in oil. You could shallow fry it, you could deep fry it. And in Israel, we have what are called sufganiyot. Those are jelly donuts, again fried, but all of these foods evoke that oil that was part of the miracle in the entire root of Hanukkah.
Now, what's the significance of the dreidel?
The significance of the dreidel. That's a great question. The dreidel was a game that comes to us, we believe the roots of it are Eastern European. Dreidel comes out of German, Yiddish, out of languages in that area. And it's got letters on 4 sides that spell out a Hebrew acronym. If you are outside of the land of Israel, you have Nes, Gadol, Haya, Sham, Nun, Gimel, He, and Shin, which stands for, or the Hebrew means, a great miracle happened there. In Israel, they read Nes Gadol Haya Po. The only change is the Shin at the end goes to a Pei. It's another different Hebrew letter for the word for a great miracle happened here rather than there. So that's why you have different dreidels that have different readings in different parts of the world.
So we're going to learn a little bit more about dreidels in just a little bit in one of our later segments. But I just wanted to wrap things up with, you know, the spiritual feeling around Hanukkah. Talk to us a little bit about that.
So Hanukkah, to me, is really cool because it's evolved as a holiday and it's changed over time. The original thing, it's kind of ironic because it's about a military victory over these sort of post-Greek Seleucids, and this idea of even having a celebration for a military victory was kind of a Greek idea to begin with. So it's got this irony to it. But the rabbis later on, about 500 years later, they're the first ones who talk about the miracle of light. They're the first ones who write it down and write down how it is that you go about celebrating it. And so they sort of transform it from a purely military holiday to being about spirituality, about light, and about God's presence and light in the darkest time of the year, in the winter. So they're the ones that talk about how, when they ask, how do you celebrate this thing? They have rules for it. And one of the things they say, when you put up a Hanukkah, a Hanukkah menorah, where do you put it? So you could put it anywhere. You could put it in the basement. You could put it in the attic. You could put it, in a closet or something. They're very clear that you should put it ideally in the window. Why? Because it's about sharing that light with other people, and it's about sharing that miracle with other people, being part of the public square in a sense, and sharing some light in the darkest time of the year.
Thank you, Rabbi Renner, for sharing it with us.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me. Say happy Hanukkah, Chag Urim Sameach, happy Festival of Lights.
We'll be right back.
I'm Justin Day from Jessup's Tavern, and I love the vittles on the 302.
Welcome back. We are here at Congregation Beth Shalom, and we're learning about dreidels. I'm joined by Phyllis Aronson. Now, Phyllis, you have how many dreidels in your collection?
Probably close to 100. Different
That's
sizes,
amazing.
different shapes, but they all have the same meaning. So it's probably close to 100. This is just a small variety.
So what made you start collecting dreidels other than the fact that playing dreidel is fun?
Well, when I was a little girl, I played dreidel, and then as I got older and had children, I noticed that dreidels came in different shapes, different forms, and they didn't all spin. So I learned that a dreidel doesn't have to spin to be a dreidel. They can be an art form, but they all still send the same message: a great miracle happened. And using, as the rabbi spoke, the Hebrew letters.
Absolutely. So you started with the dreidels of your childhood.
Yes,
and you have progressed. So tell me a little bit about, first, this one. This one is unique in that you don't really spin it by itself.
This is, actually his name was Gary Rosenthal, and he was a sculptor. He loved to work in metal, and then he came upon this. So this became one. This is one of my favorites, and I don't know actually who made it, but it's wrapped paper. They took a form and they folded paper, just completely folded from magazines, it's a form of origami, and put the letters on it, so it became a dreidel.
Absolutely.
It doesn't spin, but you could place it, and yet you could play the game with it. It's all part of a game.
Now, when you look at the majority of these, I think this is really beautiful. They all have the different letters, and depending upon where the dreidel was made, there's a variation.
Yes, yes. If the dreidel was made in America or any place outside of Israel, it would not have, it does not have the word peh. But if it's made in Israel, if it's made in Israel, it has peh. If it's made outside of Israel, it has a shin. So.
And the difference is there and here.
Yes,
so a miracle happened there.
There, which would be Israel today.
Or a miracle happened here.
Which was the commercial way that artists would have portrayed the miracle using the letters here. This really tells you what the letters might look like. This is a hey, this is a shin, this is a nun. Nun is, and when you play the game, that's neutral. You don't take money in or out. It's neutral. And this is the gimel, which is gadol. A great miracle happened. It wasn't just a small miracle. It was a great miracle. And that's how we learn the happy holiday that Israel, whether you're in Israel or America or any place in the world. This is Delft, which is a firm company, but
Portugal.
People from Portuguese, it's from a synagogue that wanted this dreidel as a commemorative to their synagogue. So each one has a story of its own.
Absolutely. And for folks at home who maybe never have played with a dreidel, there are, you said, the symbols that mean different things. So when you spin them, everybody has what? They have pennies, or they have geld, the coins, chocolate coins.
Whatever it is, yeah.
So how does it work?
We used to say when I was a little girl it was peanuts, but now with the allergies to peanuts, we don't do
Oh,
that
no,
anymore.
no peanuts.
But if you're playing and it's the shin, the player must put something into, everybody starts off putting something in, one thing in,
Okay.
1 penny. I'm going to use penny.
Okay.
So they put 1 penny in, and then the spinner spins, and if that turns out to be a shin, the shin would be up, then that player must take must put 1 in.
Okay.
So now there's everybody plus 1.
And none is
And then
nothing.
None, neutral. Hey, you take half the pot. And if you get the G, the gimel, which would be...
That's the one you want, because you
that's
get
the
it all,
one.
right?
That's the one. Then you get everything that's in the pot. And to play again, everybody puts their penny or peanut or whatever it is you're playing for. So, and it's intergenerational. So some people are good spinners and some are just flops. Years ago, I did a program at the Kutz Home, and some of the patients came up. They could just about walk, and then they would spin like they were little kids, and it was joyful.
Because it's a game.
It was a game, and they could do it. It brought back early memories of making something out of fun out of a game. But the art form is also interesting.
Yeah, tell me about this one. That one's really cool.
This is actually, I think, one of the first. But you can see it has almost an Arabic look.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's made out of glass. It's signed, so whoever made this made it, look like.
So how do you tell which one it lands on?
This would be the shin. Well, when you're really playing the game, you would use little dreidels or little spinner dreidels. But if some of these, you just have to imagine that it's an art form.
Dreidels come in all shapes and sizes. There are sports dreidels. If you're a football fan.
The creativity of who we represent. That's one that's for football. Here's a golf. There are just many, and that's what the collection is for me. It shows the creativity that we all have, and some are able to do it on paper, some in clay, some in wood. And children do this in schools. They play the game with, you don't have to be, you teach the game. As you're playing the game, you're teaching it to other people, and that unites us.
And hopefully you walk away with peanuts or pennies or chocolate coins. So
Exactly.
Phyllis, thank you so much for sharing your collection with us, and happy Hanukkah to you.
Thank you, I appreciate it, and I appreciate the joy that we give.
We'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Nataki Oliver, gallerist of the Soul Firm Art Gallery. Here in the 302, we believe artists deserve red roses and red dots.
Jews have been in Delaware since the 17th century, so there's a lot more history beyond the miracle of lights, and we're going to learn all about that. I'm joined now by Gail Pietchik, who is with the Jewish Historical Society of Delaware. Gail, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting us. We're delighted to be here on the 302.
So there's so much history beyond Hanukkah and the observances of the holidays, and that's kind of your job to make sure that this is all preserved. Is that right?
That's my business, yes. We keep the records for many of the organizations, individuals, and basically the Jewish community in Delaware. There are amazing, wonderful stories to tell, and we're always delighted to share those stories with our community. So we'd love to welcome people to come and visit our research library. We're located in Willingtown Square. We're part of the campus of the Delaware Historical Society, and we're very happy to be there and share the resources with the community that preserves history in Delaware.
Absolutely. Now, the first Jews in Delaware were Dutch, is that right? But it didn't really, the population, the community didn't really start to flourish until like the 19th century, is that right?
That's right. In the 1880s, the Jewish community in Delaware really began to grow. Of course, by that time, many of the communities in Philadelphia and Baltimore that were much larger than Philadelphia had grown to a sizable community. And the new communities and people came to Delaware, brought the Jewish community here as well. They've flourished and built many synagogues, built a really meaningful community with services for the aging, educational programs, and many resources to support not just the Jews in Delaware, but the whole community of Delaware.
Absolutely. Now we are at Congregation Beth Shalom, which is coming up on a very big milestone.
Congregation Beth Shalom is celebrating its 100th anniversary this year. Many of our organizations are now 100 or more years old, and we're very happy to be able to help support their efforts to document their history and tell the story of how they came to be, and certainly to help them plan for the future as well.
So I'm looking at some of the photos here, and there's one that is just really awesome, the Golden Jubilee of Temple Beth Shalom. Tell me about that.
That was in the 1970s, and they had a large dinner party that was pretty much everyone from the congregation and many from the community. It's great fun, especially. I love working with archival material, especially the old photographs.
So when you get all of these pictures and oral histories and things like that, is that something, you know, if someone is interested in researching, you know, the Jewish heritage here in Delaware, they can come to you and they can find out, you know, all this material, they can touch it and read it and experience it? Absolutely.
That's what we're here for. Phyllis had mentioned the art space at the Jewish Community Center, that's the Siegel JCC, and occasionally images from our collection are displayed in the art space, and so as are other exhibits highlighting art and creativity in the Delaware community. So it's a wonderful resource for historic images. We also help verify facts, which is always an important piece of our work, and help families to learn more about their ancestors. And it can be very rewarding to see the next generation learn more about their parents and grandparents.
I know that education is key in the community, especially whenever we talk to some of the seniors about some of the events in the past. Like, you know, if you share the story of, say, the Holocaust, then it's something that we hope will not be repeated, that kind of thing. So do you do outreach in that area as well? Or, because I know a lot of people are interested in that.
Right. One of the other organizations that houses collections in our building, the Delaware Center for Jewish History at the Cox House, is the Holocaust Education Committee. That's Helena Wind Preston Holocaust Education Committee. They're responsible for a great deal of outreach in Delaware, and we often will work with them. We were able to work with students from the Red Clay School District last spring, both telling them the story of Delaware Jewish history and the Holocaust survivors who have lived in Delaware.
So a lot of education and preservation opportunities, a lot going on. If someone wants to know more, where do they need to go?
Visit our website at jhsdelaware.org. and reach out. We'll be happy to welcome you. Our collections are open by appointment, and I do my best to try and keep times that are available for anyone who wants to come and use our collections.
Well, Gail, thank you so much for sharing it with us.
Thank you very much.
We'll be right back. That'll do it for this week's episode of The 302. We're going to leave you now with a Hanukkah snow globe with a Disney twist. Until next time, I'm Jackie Ferris. Tell them you saw it on The 302.